first thing I have for you is out of Charlottesville, Virginia. A federal indictment charging James Alex Field Jr. with hate crime charges. They just provided us an update. Let's watch.
To deny people of their basic and fundamental civil rights, such as the right to peaceably assemble, to express a viewpoint, to engage in speech, or to worship. Since January of 2017, the Department of Justice has indicted 32 defendants on hate crimes charges, and it has secured convictions against 31 individuals involved in hate crimes incidents. The Attorney General has emphasized that combating hate crimes is a pillar of the Department's nationwide effort to eliminate violent crime. The Department is engaged in an active, thorough, department-wide, and comprehensive approach in its fight against hate crimes. That approach includes engagement at the federal, state, local, and tribal levels to improve training of law enforcement agents and prosecutors, to improve data collection and reporting, and to enhance outreach in communities affected by hate violence. As these recent efforts demonstrate, the Department of Justice and the Civil Rights Division are resolutely committed to eradicating hate crimes from our communities and our country. Our commitment is to the full, fair, and even-handed enforcement of the nation's hate crimes laws all across the country. We thank the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the hardworking men and women in those offices, the local police and other law enforcement for their cooperation in making this indictment possible today. Our thoughts are with Ms. Heyer's family, the other victims and their families, and with the greater Charlottesville community. Thank you.
So we have a large group, but we'll try to take a few questions if you all have them. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you, with Mr. Fields already charged with murder and other counts in state court, why did the federal government feel it was important to charge him federally? Sure. So the Commonwealth of Virginia has a substantial interest in prosecuting an alleged homicide. The United States Attorney's Office, the Department of Justice, has a substantial interest in prosecuting racially motivated hate crimes. If we didn't bring this case, that critical federal interest, in our view, would have been unvindicated. And how do you think both cases will go? Will they be on similar tracks time-wise, or could the federal case be done first? So that remains to be seen. They will proceed on separate but parallel tracks. The Commonwealth's attorney for the city of Charlottesville filed charges before we did. That case is pending. I believe they have a trial scheduled for late fall. Mr. Fields will come into federal custody probably early next week. He'll make an initial appearance, and then we will be subject to a scheduling order, and I'm sure there will be extensive coordination between his federal, state counsel, the court, and our office with respect to who goes first and when those trials will be. Yes, ma'am.
Is the department considering additional charges against any of the organizers or participants of either the Torch Light March or the Unite the Right rally?
So here's what I can say about that. As a general rule, we don't comment on ongoing and pending investigations. In this case, the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Civil Rights Division put out a statement following the August 12th incident last summer that the incident involving Mr. Fields was under investigation. Today's indictment constitutes the culmination of that investigation. What I will say is that we are continuing to investigate other aspects of August 12th, 2017. I don't have any announcements today, but that is something that is ongoing and something that is a priority of my office and the Civil Rights Division.
But this investigation is concluded.
With respect to Mr. Fields, this indictment is the first step in concluding that investigation. Yes, sir.
After the rally, there was a lot of discussion about whether what we saw was or was not terrorism. Did you consider any terrorism-related charges here?
So the term domestic terrorism is thrown around frequently. I believe the Attorney General in the days following August 12th referred to some of what happened on August 12th in Charlottesville as domestic terrorism. I think that was a fair characterization. We don't have a domestic terrorism statute per se. It's a good label to describe conduct. We're working within the confines of the United States Code, and the civil rights charges that we brought today, in our view, best fit the underlying conduct with respect to Mr. Fields.
Can you talk about Section 245, I believe it is, the one that makes them eligible for the death penalty? How often is that used, and can you walk us through why you decided to use that charge in this case?
That's a great question. I'm going to defer to the experts of the Civil Rights Division to give you a broader context.
Certainly. Thank you for that question. And to answer the question about domestic terrorism, as U.S. Attorney Cullen mentioned, that is something, a label the Attorney General did ascribe to some of these events that occurred on August 12th. And in our view, hate crimes are the original acts of domestic terrorism because they are meant to terrorize entire communities, families, and not only victims, but certainly victims as well. In terms of Section 245, it is a less common charge than Section 249. It differs from Section 249 in two respects. Section 249 is a codification of the Shepard-Byrd Hate Crimes Act. Section 245 is an older civil rights statute. It was part of the Civil Rights Act of 1968. But the two differences are that in addition to proving that there was a bias motivation, that the defendant acted because of the actual or perceived race or national origin of members of the crowd, there's an additional requirement to show that the defendant was motivated by the victim's use of a state facility, which in this case would be the streets and sidewalks here in Charlottesville. And the second distinction, which U.S. Attorney Cullen already mentioned, is that Section 245 is a death-eligible offense, and there is a well-established and rigorous protocol that the Department of Justice will observe in determining whether to seek the death penalty here.
You have to show that the defendant was motivated by the victim's use of a state facility, as in he was motivated by the fact that she was marching in some kind of a protest or demonstration, or?
So yes, it's both because of the actual and perceived race or national origin, and what the statute refers to as participation in a federally protected activity, and one of those is use of a state facility, which can include a sidewalk or a street.
Do you have any sense for how much this investigation cost? And given the amount of criticism that the president received for his comments immediately after Charlottesville, was there special pressure on you to really get this right and do a very thorough job, or would you have done this anyway?
So with respect to cost, I have no idea how much it costs. I think the fact that we had all these resources and brought all these resources to bear over the course of 10 months speaks for itself. I certainly don't speak for the president, but as representative of the Department of Justice, we speak through our indictments. We think this indictment speaks for itself with respect to our view on racially motivated hate crimes and our goal of eradicating these types of violent acts. And the third part of your question was?
No, that's it, and I'm just wondering how many hate crimes have you prosecuted in the last year?
In our district, this is the first that we prosecuted in the last year. And I've been on this job for 3 months. Charlottesville and this team has been working on this case for 10 months. They're committed to being here and staying the course, and we're hopeful that good things will come from that.
Mr. Cullen?
Yes, sir.
As we Charlottesville prepares for the anniversary of August 12th, is there a message you have to people who might be wanting to come back here to do more violence, do more damage into our community?
Obviously, if news accounts are accurate, and I have no reason to doubt that they are, there has been talk of an anniversary event on August 12th. We're hopeful that in indicting Mr. Fields today, we're sending a strong message that racially motivated hate crimes and violent acts will not be tolerated in this district. I think this community, from a law enforcement perspective, is well prepared to deal with that. And we're hopeful that in putting out this indictment today, that folks get the message that if they come to Charlottesville and engage in racially motivated violence, there will be severe consequences, and we are very attuned to the possibility of having to play a role down the road.
Does federal law prohibit hate speech, per se?
John? That's a very good question. It does not per se, and of course, the First Amendment protects speech regardless of whether we find it repugnant or hateful or otherwise objectionable. What we're dealing with today is a hate crime. It's an action undertaken out of hate and because of bias motivation, and that is illegal. And this Department of Justice is resolute and firm in its commitment to prosecuting hate crimes. I gave some numbers earlier. We are continuing to prosecute hate crimes all across the country, and we will continue to do so. Hate crimes are serious, violent, repugnant crimes. We will not tolerate this kind of repugnant lawlessness in Charlottesville or anywhere else, and we will continue to bring the full resources of the federal government to prosecuting all serious crimes, including hate crimes when they occur.
Would you have any idea how many times 245 has been used, say, over the last 10, 20 years?
I don't know.
We can probably get it. So follow up with Brian. Any other questions in the back?
In terms of determining his motivations, was it mostly the social media that you were doing also?
So we're limited in what we can say at this stage, which is partly why we presented a speaking indictment, which lays out our version of how the evidence fits with the charges. I will say, as has been alluded to, that the social media aspect was a huge part of this investigation, which is mainly why the investigation took 10 months. What I would say with respect to the evidence and what we'll be able to establish in court is stay tuned.
Can someone discuss the process for deciding whether the death penalty will be sought? And is it A.G. Sessions who has the ultimate say, or is it a committee of people? Or?
Sure. So as John referenced, it is a well-established and rigorous process. It is coordinated by the capital case unit at the Department of Justice. So these are career prosecutors who review death penalty or potential death penalty cases across the country. They seek input from the prosecuting jurisdiction, so from the U.S. Attorney's Office, from the victims' families, and ultimately it's presented to the Attorney General, who has ultimate authority as to whether or not the department will seek the death penalty or won't in a particular case. And but it involves a multifaceted review with a lot of people weighing in throughout the process.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
All right, everyone. Some people are asking for a reminder as to which case that was that they were talking about. The 21-year-old man accused of ramming his car through a crowd protesting a white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia last year has been charged with federal hate crimes. Heather Heyer, who was 32, died in the alleged attack. Authorities say James Alex Fields Jr. from Ohio allegedly smashed his car into a group of people demonstrating against the Unite the Right rally in August 2017, which drew hundreds of white nationalists to the college town, where officials plan to remove a Confederate monument. Fields has been charged with 1 count of a hate crime resulting in Heyer's death, as well as 28 other hate crime charges involving attempts to kill others, according to an indictment released today. The charges are in addition to the first-degree murder and other charges levied at the state level. So that's the update there. Let's get you all